it has taken him 400 to 500 days to try to get access to a therapy that will improve my quality of life. And don't forget, he's already been approved for this once before.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
Come on, Health Canada.
So
yeah, they're saying that the best way to access the psilocybin is through a clinical trial. It's a number of being conducted. The Center of Addiction and Mental Health, CAMH, in Toronto just began a 3-year clinical trial looking at whether psilocybin can be effective treatment for mental health issues like depression without the psychedelic effect.
Yeah, Dr. Hussein, he says, I'm concerned about the increase in access to psilocybin and other psychedelics. We don't know who it's helpful for, who it's safe to use in, and how often. Don't know what you're getting when you're getting it from these dispensaries. Well, that's why it's nice to have, make access available.
But what are they going to do? They're going to go to Shroomies or wherever they can. If they can't, if Health Canada isn't renewing their prescription.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So yeah, the stores are popping up.
They are.
There you go. There's a picture right there. Shroomies right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they are becoming, more frequently, like you said earlier, just like the cannabis stores.
Right. Well, I hope Mr. Hartle is able to access his medicine again.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I completely agree there. It should not be being held up for that. So, all right. Next story. This one comes to us from CBC, and it says that a young access to information battle between journalists and Health Canada over data on the locations of large-scale cannabis growers has concluded, with the federal court judge ruling that even city or town information could identify patients. That's good news, Kelly.
That's really good news. It's a years-long access to information battle between the journalists and Health Canada over data on the location of the large-scale medical cannabis growers. It's conducted with a federal court judge ruling that even city or town information could risk identifying patients and therefore protected from disclosure.
Yeah, the case, which was taken to court by the Federal Information Commissioner on behalf of a Globe and Mail reporter and another journalist in 2020, addresses the tension between the public's right to information and a patient's right to privacy, and the necessity of striking a balance in an increasing data-centric world. And this is good news for the patients.
Absolutely. One expert who reviewed the decision said that the health information included the postal codes of licensed medical cannabis growers, and they must be treated sensitively. But the other said he fears the decision could be taken by the government as licensed to abdicate to responsibility to provide full responses to access information requests.
Yeah, the court battle started with an access request filed by the Globe in August of 2017, seeking a list of addresses for individual people who are licensed to grow and possess industrial quantities of cannabis, meaning hundreds of plants at a time. Like, they've been trying to get access to this list of people for years and years, between all the municipalities complaining about it left and right. And now the courts have ruled that they don't have access to it. And that should be over and done with.
What a win.
Yes.
The request was made as part of an investigation into personal yet industrial scale cannabis farms under the now defunct medical cannabis regime of the time. The Globe found that these farms, licensed and shielded by health privacy laws, created a shadow market in which individual people who were either patients or their designates were able to collectively churn out as much cannabis as some commercial producers and none of the scrutiny. As the result, the Globe found they became prime targets for robberies and abuse by organized crime. How sad.
Yeah, I know. Well, stores are getting robbed. Should we eliminate the stores?
No.
Health Canada denied the Globe's request, arguing that providing even general location details for these locations, despite their industrial scale, could risk breaching medical cannabis patients' public or private health information. Only province-level information was provided. A similar request around the same time by Toronto-based freelance journalist Patrick cane was also denied.
Wow.
They've been trying to get this stuff for years.
The fall, the Globe and Mr. Kane both appealed the decisions to the Information Commissioner, who agreed that at least 2 or 3 digits of the postal codes of the
Mhm.
operations in more populous regions should be made available, and in a rare move, ultimately decided to take Health Canada to court when the department still refused to release the information.
Oh,
Wow.
I agree. Postal code information can release information that you don't want.
Of course.
Yeah, for sure. Canadian postal codes are made up of 6 characters divided into groups of 3. The first 3 make up what's known as a forward sortation area, or FSA. In large cities, FSAs are usually neighborhood sized, while in less populated areas, they may encompass areas of thousands of square kilometers. So obviously within the city,
Wow.
somebody who's looking for them could find them pretty easily.
Right? Now, Health
Yeah.
Canada's argument for refusing disclosure was that even if some FSAs could be provided for areas large enough that no patient could be identifiable, it would be too burdensome for it to conduct a full analysis of whether it would be possible for someone to combine the information with other data to identify patients.
Wow. In the federal court decision, which was released at the end of January, Justice William Pentney agreed with Health Canada. He found the government agency was not required to undertake a more detailed analysis of the risks associated with releasing more information pursuant to its obligation to sever and release as much information as is reasonable.
Okay. So the ruling now, can they change it at all? Or is this just the final decision? They can't get access?
It's a federal court, so I would assume that they could still go to Supreme Court.
Well, let's hope that that doesn't happen now.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There you go. Yeah. Well, the federal court has held it up.
That's a good
Can't release that
decision.
information. And yeah, well, see, you notice that they kept emphasizing industrial size
Yeah. Yeah.
grows. The problem is that little bit that the door opens the door up for more down the road.
Okay.
That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
If they allow some patients access to information to be seen, then
Right.
other information will be requested down the road.
So just blanket it overall and make sure
All right,
everybody's
on to the next story here. Headline says psilocybin and CBD. Can you mix them? According to Benziga News. There we go.
with the medical potential of both psilocybin and CBD, there's an increasing interest in exploring the possibilities of combining them for therapeutic benefit.
Psilocybin and CBD are 2 compounds found in nature that have been gaining attention for their potential therapeutic benefits. Psilocybin is a psychedelic compound found in mushrooms, and as we know, CBD is non-psychoactive compound found in the cannabis plant. We all know that.
Right. So let's look. So of course we know CBD. It's
Yeah.
it's the non-psychoactive compound found in cannabis. Unlike THC, it doesn't give you a high that's associated with cannabis. It's it interacts with your endocannabinoid system.
Exactly. It can be found in several forms: tinctures, capsules, so on and so forth.
Mhm.
And the FDA has not yet regulated the production of CBD products down in the States.
Right.
Yeah. And a quick review of psilocybin.
Yep.
Yep. It's found in mushrooms, as we know. It's ingested. Don't smoke it.
Right.
Eat it.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a renewed interest in the therapeutic potential of psilocybin,
There
particularly in
is.
the treatment of mental health and depression and anxiety, as has been CBD. So obviously there's sort of that correlation there.
Yeah. Yeah. And there is. So they talk about where, psilocybin is legal in the USA. As we know, more and more states are doing it. The headline and the question is, can you mix psilocybin and CBD?
Right. Of course, combining psilocybin and CBD is an area of growing interest as there is a potential for the two compounds to have a synergistic effect, enhancing the therapeutic benefits of both.
Yep. As we know, psilocybin is a natural occurring compound. It has positive effect on mood and emotional regulation, while CBD is non-psychoactive and provides help for people with all kinds of conditions.
So there's been a few studies that have explored the combination of psilocybin and CBD. A new study conducted in 2016 found that the combination of the two compounds led to increased feelings of euphoria and well-being, as well as decreased feelings of anxiety.
Another study conducted in 2020 found that the combination of psilocybin and CBD was effective in reducing symptoms of depression in a small group of participants.
And it also thought that combination of psilocybin and CBD may be helpful for treating addiction. Wow.
Wow, nice. They say it's important to note that the combination of psilocybin and CBD is still being researched, and its safety effect and efficacy is yet to be determined. So,
And they're suggesting to consult a medical professional before
yeah,
you experiment. But nice to see that there's some studies being done and some conversation
correct.
about this.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I completely agree with you. Um, that way, if they combine and they can improve things for patients,
yeah,
then why not?
right. Soon to be
All
found at
right.
shroomies.
Yes, exactly. Okay, our next headline comes from MJ Biz Daily. Argentina launches cannabis regulatory agency with eye on exports.
Argentina launched a national regulatory agency for the hemp and medical cannabis industries, aiming to capitalize on the domestic and international markets.
Yes, the governing body, agency of regulatory. That's just a long words. Let's just say it's their agency that's going to look after all this stuff. Okay, they seek to regulate and foster a wide variety of cannabis-related sectors, such as medical cannabis, cannabinoids in food and cosmetics, cannabinoids in food for veterinary use. Oh, good stuff, and industrial hemp.
Nice to see Argentina. It's their first working group, and their first working group was held last week. El Economista reported that the agency also listed its general objectives.
Yeah, the objectives, which include industrial hemp and all the derivatives in Argentina, including for food, construction materials, textiles, bioplastics, and promote scientific research and cannabinoid-related technological progress, as well as promote favorable conditions for the existing industries inside the country.
Now, more specifically, the agency will look to establish clear rules providing a legal certainty to the sector, and it will monitor non-compliance with the regulatory regime.
Yeah, they will also be responsible for authorizations of imports, production, domestic marketing, and exports, according to Aladdin Bray Law Firms, which is in Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires?
They say the Reuters reported that the new national agency's working group will look to regularize and promote the country's nascent cannabis sector.
Yeah, they say that it opens the door for Argentina to start a new path in terms of industrial exports on the basis of huge global demand, according to the news agency quoted the economic minister as saying.
Right. After Argentina's industry largely failed to materialize in 2017, when the initial medical cannabis law was approved, authorities published a new decree in 2020 aiming to address the shortcomings of the rules governing the country's medical cannabis sector.
Yeah, the decree allowed pharmacies to dispense medical um, uh, products. It also expanded the reach of the potential industry by allowing access to medical cannabis for any ailment, not just a select condition, as was the case back in 2017.
So it also expanded the reach of the potential industry by allowing access to medical cannabis for any ailment, not just selected conditions, as was the case in 2017.
Right. Yep. Yep. There you go. So it's good to know that
Yes.
patients there are going to get access on, not just on a few conditions.
Yeah.
There's going to be many that they'll be able to have access to. And it says any, so it doesn't sound like there's going to be any specific list, whether it's 100 things long or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Exciting
righty.
progress.
Yes, it is. Exactly. Okay, on to our next story. This comes to us from the Marijuana Moment. Virginia bill to reschedule psilocybin and create board to study therapeutic access heads to the Senate floor.
This is the story that the gremlins took over my computer with, Al, so I'm going to have to read it off of here.
Okay, all righty. Here we go. Want me to start?
Yep.
Okay, a Virginia Senate bill to establish a statewide psilocybin advisory board and more, the psychedelic to a lower schedule under state statute, is headed for the floor following its approval in committee. The Senate Education and Health Committee passed the legislation from Senator Hashmi in a 14-1 vote on Thursday after a week after it was advanced out of a subcommittee. Kelly, 14-1.
Yes, that's a win. Now, the measure now heads to the full Senate for consideration, but time is running thin in the short section with the, I'm so sorry, I can't read it because it's moving.
It's all right.
Go ahead, Al.
I'll go through it. You be my color commentary person here.
I'll be your color commentary.
Advocates are encouraged to see psychedelics reform move in the legislature, especially after a separate Virginia House of Delegates panel recently rejected a measure to legalize psilocybin for therapeutic use for people with serious conditions, even with the doctor's recommendation.
Wow.
The board that's being proposed would be required to develop a long-term strategic plan for establishing therapeutic access to psilocybin services and monitor and study federal laws, regulations, and policies regarding psilocybin. Now, the governor would be responsible for appointing 12 members to the board, including public health and safety officials, an addiction medicine specialist, a psychologist, a physician specializing in post-traumatic stress disorder, clinical researcher, a mycologist, and more. Wonder if patients are going to be involved in that, Kelly.
Wow, they have a big team there, though. Mycologists, doctors. Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, exactly. Members would need to submit a report on its findings, they say, by December of each year. If enacted, the measure would amend state statute to place psilocybin in Schedule 3, which possession of substances in that schedule is considered a Class 1 misdemeanor, punishable by maximum 1 year in prison and a fine up to $2,500.
That's a maximum, though.
Yeah, but just jail.
With the Class 1 misdemeanor, which I think is a lot less severe than what it is right now.
Yeah, they say, well, right now possession is a Schedule 1 drug, where psilocybin is currently listed. It is a Class 5 felony that carries up to 10 years in prison and up to a $2,500 fine.
10 years is a lot different than 1.
Sure is. It sure is. There's no doubt about that.
Nice
but
progress.
I noticed that the dollar amount in the fine remained. It didn't change any.
No, just want to send you to jail.
Yeah.
But that's wonderful for Virginia, and that I'm sure the other states will follow suit once they see this.
Yeah. And that's what we're seeing. It's happening more and more down there. All right. Time for us to take a break. Time for commercial time, Kelly. And it's time to hear from those who help us inform our viewers. You're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Education News, found at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. You're listening to the Pace Radio. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
When you think of the number of unique products developed in the fields, kitchens, and labs at Legacy 420, it's hard to think that one stands out above the rest. But tell that to the thousands of people who have tried this amazing breakthrough product.
This is our Sacred Salve. This is actually our extra strength. It comes in 5 different strengths. It's all natural, all organic. It typically works within 10 to 15 minutes of putting it on. It's good for arthritis, it's good for inflammation, any kind of pain. We're very proud of it.
Sacred Salve, so easy to apply, along with soothing relief. To select a strength that's right for you, come in and talk to your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
Pace Radio Network, by patients, for patients, and for those who want to know.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Let's share Pace everywhere. That way it can help create peace. People everywhere advocating cannabis education. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net. We're back from our medication session and we're live. As you saw, I tripped up on the controls over break time there.
I do that all the time.
But we're live. There's no editing going on here today. All righty. Well, Rev Kelly, you ready to get into the next 5?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. New Brunswick RCMP investigating after children ingest cannabis edibles at Saskville Middle School, and this is CTV News.
What is going on in Sackville, New Brunswick? Investigating 7 children ingested cannabis edibles at a middle school last week. A middle school.
Yeah. Sergeant Eric Hansen of Saskville RCMP said a student brought cannabis edibles to the Marsview Middle School. 7 students in total ingested the edible gummies and 5 out of the 7 were taken to the Memorial Hospital for precautionary reasons.
Parents were contacted, and it was recommended to the parents that they bring their children to the hospital, but everyone was released.
The children were between the ages of 10 and 11, and the police are now trying to find out exactly where the children obtained the cannabis edibles.
Saying we're working with the school now and the parents of the children to determine exactly where this came from and go from there.
Yeah, they said that it appears the children believe the edibles were candy. No charges have been laid as of yet, and they say that there's still a lot to determine yet before discussing charges.
So, a bunch of tweens, preteens, taking their parents' gummies, it sounds like, and handing them out to children at school.
Yeah, and it's
Or
as I
they
said,
really did think they were candy. They really
the
like it
kids
was.
thought that they were candies, and I throw all this back at the responsible adult who's supposed to be in the room, and
Yeah.
they're leaving them accessible for children to get at. You
We
don't leave
don't
them
hear of kids
accessible,
going
they're
to
not going
school
to
with
get at it.
alcohol,
If you don't, or
right?
you
We
don't
don't hear of
educate
kids
them.
bringing beer to school.
Yeah.
We don't hear about that because the parents are,
No,
they've been trained. You
no.
lock your alcohol up, or you teach them not to touch your alcohol. Right? We never hear of that, but now we're hearing that they're coming to school with the candy. You're right,
Yeah.
Al. Those parents need to do a better job of locking it up.
Exactly.
They do. Oh, you're frozen.
Yeah,
Am I
well,
frozen?
I know of a parent that put their empty beer cases in the closet, and then found their kid going at the empties.
What?
So yeah, you got to eat them as well as keeping it out of their reach. There's no doubt about that.
That's right. That's right.
All righty. Yeah, exactly. All right, on to the next story. This one comes to us from Wired. MDMA and psilocybin are approved as medicines for the first time.
In Australia, they have announced that they will officially recognize MDMA and psilocybin as medicine.
That's right. Australia's Therapeutic Goods Administration, this is the TGA, the government authority responsible for regulating medicines, announced that starting July the 1st, 2023, authorized psychiatrists will be able to prescribe MDMA for the treatment of post-traumatic stress disorder and psilocybin for treatment of resistant depression. Because the TGA has yet to approve any actual medicines that contain MDMA or psilocybin, patients will initially be receiving unapproved medicines containing the substances.
And the decision came as a big surprise. At the end of December 2021, the same regulatory body decided against downscheduling the drugs for use in medical context. When I woke up, my email was completely flooded with people saying, "Have you heard what's happening?" I was shocked by the decision, said Simon Raphael, a psychiatrist and senior research fellow at the Psychiatric Institute at the University of Melbourne.
Yep, both advocates celebrate. Experts warn that they are still many questions around just how many people will be actually able to access the treatments come July 1st, as well as whether Australia has jumped the gun before gathering enough evidence on how to roll out these treatments effectively and safely.
I think it'll take a while to ramp up, says Daniel Perkins, adjacent associate professor at the Center for Mental Health at Swinburne University, a senior research fellow at the University of Melbourne. This is wise, he says. Let it gradually open up to see what works well and what does not. They've probably intentionally done it this way.
Yeah, the path for psychiatrists to get the all clear to dole out these drugs could be lengthy and twisted. First, psychiatrists will need to be approved under Australia's authorized prescriber scheme, which means being endorsed by a human resource ethics committee and then the TGA. For this, they'll need to prove that they can clinically justify the treatment regime, that they will have proper guidance over the treatment process, and that they will be using suitable measures to protect patients. What exactly these measures look like in practice have yet to be laid out in detail by the TGA. And they're going to get all this stuff done by July the 1st. Wow.
they're ambitious. TGA has yet to provide any detail regarding the minimum training standards required for psychiatrists to become authorized prescribers. This makes exactly how these treatments will be prescribed ambiguous, considering the bedrock of evidence to support them involves patients receiving therapy from trained professionals alongside the drugs themselves. But of this, and because the TGA has put the onus on the psychiatrist to demonstrate that their prescribing practices are appropriate, Providing therapy in conjunction with the drugs will likely be required, says Rice Cohen, who is on the non-executive advisory board of the Lambert Initiative for Cannabinoid Therapies at the University of Sydney and consults for the medical cannabis industry.
And not just any psychiatrist or psychologist can safely administer these kinds of therapeutics. Ruffle points out that in well-established indigenous psychedelic practices around the world, people spend 5 to 10 years at least trained to be able to work with these kinds of substances. I think that a grave error would be able to think that psychiatrists and psychological qualifications are transferable to psychedelic substances without additional training.
Now, another barrier to access will likely be costs. The treatments won't be covered by health insurance, so it's probably initially going to be a therapy for relatively well-off people who have these conditions, Perkins says.
It can be thousands of dollars. Well, we've reported on the one in Jamaica, how much they are.
Yep.
Some worry that Australia will be putting the cart before the horse in terms of safety and long-term effects of these treatments. According to Ruffle, we haven't even looked at any longer-term data yet. The longest data that we have is 12 months. We don't really know what happens down the line.
But on the other hand, the benefit, particularly for the treatment-resistant conditions that they're talking about, PTSD and depression, could be really huge, says Perkins.
Yeah. Mostly there's a sense of surprise that Australia is the first off the mark. And at the beginning of 2023, Oregon became the first U.S. state to allow adult use of psilocybin under the supervision of a state-certified facilitator. Though the substance remains an unapproved drug in the U.S. for now, it's been predicted that the U.S. Food and Drug Administration will approve MDMA for the treatment of PTSD in 2024. Switzerland allows a limited number of psychiatrists to use LSD and MDMA to assist psychotherapy. And how it unfolds in Australia will be interesting to see. Rev Kelly?
I think so. It's wonderful. It's progress for sure.
Yeah, progress. It's just taking time. It isn't going to happen overnight.
Nope.
But it does look like there's a bit of a list for some of them for a hurdle to get over.
Yeah.
But
it's another nation saying yes. That's what we need.
Correct. Exactly. All right, on to our next story. This one comes from the Marijuana Moment. Headline says that Maryland lawmakers unveil bill to launch marijuana sales months after voters approve legalization on the ballot.
Good news. Maryland House and Senate lawmakers on Friday unveiled a much-anticipated bill to tax and regulate cannabis months after voters approved a legislation referendum on the ballot.
Yes, bunch of Congress people there. They got a bunch of names. They're sponsoring the House legislation, and they're carrying the chambers, going to the chamber's companions. The measures will get the state prepared to regulate cannabis commerce, as the state law legalizing possession of up to 1.5 ounces of cannabis for adults takes effect on July the 1st.
Now, under the proposals, cannabis would be taxed at 6% for the first fiscal year starting this summer. It would increase by 1% each year until 2028, maxing it out at 10%.
The bills propose to put a 30% of marijuana tax revenues towards a community and reinvestment fund for at least the next 10 years. It further calls for 1.5% of revenue to go to localities and another 1.5% each for Cannabis Public Health Fund and the Cannabis Business Assistance Fund. What's good to see is just not going in a slush fund.
Right. The Cannabis, Alcohol, and Tobacco Commission would be renamed as the Maryland Alcohol, Tobacco, and Cannabis Commission, which would be responsible for regulating the program. Under the commission, there would be an Office of Social Equity to promote industry participation and provide technical assistance for people who've been disproportionately impacted by criminalization.
Yep, that office would additionally be charged with working with the state controller and the Maryland Department of Commerce to determine how best to distribute cannabis tax dollars for the Community Reinvestment Fund, putting it back into the community. Kelly, holy smoke.
I like this next one. Existing medical cannabis dispensaries would be converted into dual licenses at the same time that legalization takes effect on July 1st, if they've paid a fee. Regulators would need to start approving additional cannabis business licenses July of 2024.
Yeah, so it looks like the ones that are there doing the medical, they'll be able to do medical and
That's neat.
rec. Yeah.
I like that one.
Senate President Bill Ferguson said during a brief press briefing on Friday that he believes the legislation has the possibility of being a national model.
Saying it's a complex topic. There's a lot of pieces. No state has gotten it right, of course. And so so what I do believe that we've done effectively here is put us on the best path possible.
The proposal would both protect public health while also ensuring that there's a more equitable way to make sure that those who have been harmed by the failed war on drugs have the opportunity to participate in the new marketplace. Wow.
Yeah, that's a nice focus. That's good that they're focusing on that. Yeah. Ferguson also said that the state needs to be prepared to launch cannabis sales on July 1st and thoughtfully craft regulations to avoid a scenario that's been played out in New York, where there are currently only 2 licensed retailers operating, but an estimated 1,400 unlicensed shop in operation.
Well, there you go. Yeah. The Senate President continued on to say, I'm hopeful that when we do pass the final product and the governor signs it, that we can be proud of the work that went into it to learn from the other states, to create a more equitable and fair marketplace in a new market and a new industry. I really feel good about it, he says.
Very good.
There you go. Yeah. Yep. Another place.
I like it.
Another,
Well done,
more
Marilyn.
and more jumping on board. There's no doubt about that. All right. Get our next story lined up here. And it says, according to CBC, psychedelic therapies emerging as mental health treatment in Saskatchewan. Sorry.
Ketamine is widely known as a party drug, but one Saskatoon mental health clinic is using the substance to help people suffering from mental health conditions.
The Linden Medical Center offers a legal ketamine-assisted psychotherapy for people suffering from depression that can't be treated with more traditional antidepressants. The clinic also offers to help with post-traumatic stress disorder.
So at the clinic, a psychiatrist assesses the patient prior to treatment and monitors how they respond to the drug. And an anesthesiologist and trained registered nurse ensure each ketamine infusion is safely delivered.
Dr. Monica Hooper, a psychiatrist at the clinic, said ketamine-assisted psychotherapy worked for about 70% of the patients. It helps with the symptoms of depression like energy deficits, motivation deficits, low mood significantly improve. And she goes on to say that they also notice a functional improvement. They're able to tolerate stressors more.
Wow. Hooper said people are starting to open up about using drugs like ketamine, psilocybin, or MDMA for mental health treatments, and the stigma isn't as high as it was 5 to 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. It was way back then. People are starting to look at the research and evidence and see that these are legitimate treatments.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Some patients here. Lesia Polchuk says her bipolar disorder was debilitating before she began ketamine-assisted psychotherapy in the clinic last May.
Yeah, she was diagnosed when she was 35 years old. She then started trying different traditional medications. And she says that I have gotten to a point where I was able to function again, but I had this nagging low-grade depression. I had a very flat effect. I had no energies. I couldn't make plans with people because I couldn't guarantee I could make it.
Wow. There she is. She says,
There she
ketamine
is.
treatment changed her life. I have no depression at all anymore. I have my life back. I have my personality back.
She emphasized continuing to access other mental health support while undergoing the treatment. She regularly sees a counselor to ensure she has a good mindset going into the ketamine treatment and that ensures her experience.
She says that she takes other medication to help treat her bipolar 2 disorder, but no longer has to also take high doses of antidepressants. While ketamine-assisted psychotherapy has been effective for Pilichuk, it isn't cheap.
No, it's not cheap. She says it's costed her thousands of dollars. She says, if my mental health is not okay, I can't function. So that has to be my number one priority always. And it probably will be for the rest of my life.
Oh my goodness. Every 6 weeks, thousands of dollars is what she pays. Wow.
Yeah.
The Hooper, the doctor, says that the cost of the sessions reflect the staff needed to ensure the patient is safe. And there is a risk of decreased levels of consciousness and a sudden severe increase in blood pressure. So it really needs that medical professionals to help them. Okay.
Yeah. Heather Whale served in the RCMP for 25 years. And in 2012, she was diagnosed with a severe PTSD, bipolar 2 disorder, and major depression disorder. She remembers having suicidal thoughts daily, barely being able to get out of the house, and having an explosive temper before beginning ketamine therapy at the Saskatoon clinic almost a year ago. There she is there.
She said that she was very wary of the treatment at first, saying, I was very leery of going on ketamine. I mean, that's Special K on the streets. And being a cop and trying to get your head around using this for medical assistance with my mental health was difficult.
Yeah, she was grateful that her husband researched ketamine-assisted psychotherapy and encouraged her to try it. She says, it's just been an experience that changed my life. I don't have suicidal thoughts anymore. Sometimes I go through cycles where I'm depressed, but this helps me bounce back, and it keeps me regulated.
Oh, how wonderful. In the summer of 2020, Thomas Hartle became the first person in Canada, we mentioned him earlier, to legally try psilocybin. So it's talking about that. It's after receiving the exemption, and it goes on to talk about, I didn't realize he was from Saskatoon, another Saskatoon.
There he is.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so there you go. Good to see that that's happening there, and patients are getting help. And yeah, those were street drugs. Some of them, that people took. Like we all knew it as ecstasy. Now it's been MDMA. Yeah.
And Special K, when I was in my club days 20 years ago, that was bad. When people were doing that, that was bad. You didn't go near those people because that was considered something so bad. So to hear this story is so remarkable what they've done.
I know, eh?
Research.
Yeah, the day of the raves. All right, last story of the day. MJ Biz Daily headline says cannabis producer Tilray drops $4 billion sales target for 2024.
Okay. Tilray Brands has quietly abandoned its pledge to achieve annual revenue of $4 billion American by the end of 2024, with analysts now predicting the North American cannabis producer will fall far short of that figure.
I'd say, yeah. The company's management no longer guides for that target, according to Pablo Zunic, managing director of the New York-based investment banking firm. He wrote in a note to investors, citing a conference call with Tilray executives in January.
The analyst said that Tilray's target was undone by delayed legislation in the United States and Germany, plus ongoing issues in Canada, including price compression, overproduction, and slowing national sales.
And they're not the only one that cannabis company is tripped up by the legalization in the U.S. In the U.S., Colorado, headquartered at Kena Corp, parent company of cannabis technology company MJ Freeway, said last week it's exiting. It's getting out of the cannabis industry.
Yeah. Wow. In Europe, Colombian cannabis firm Clever Leaves announced they're planning to leave. And Massachusetts-based multi-state operator Curaleaf Holdings, they're exiting California, Oregon, and Colorado. Woo!
Yeah.
Woo!
Tilray CEO Erwin Simon originally laid out the ambitious $4 billion plan. Good luck. In a letter to Tilray shareholders in August of 2021, Simon detailed his strategic vision to achieve the $4 billion in revenue.
Saying this is the foundation that will be so essential in getting us from our current combined retail market share in Canada of 16% to our goal of 30% by the fiscal year of 2024.
However, that market share at home has fallen by nearly 50% since then, and Tilray now says it controls roughly 8% of the Canadian recreational market.
In an email to MJ Biz Daily, a spokesperson for the North American Cannabis, Alcohol, and Pharmaceutical Distribution Company conceded that the federal legalization in the United States and Germany did not play out as the company had expected.
No, I guess not. Yep. U.S. lawmakers failed to legalize cannabis. It's an ongoing story down there.
Yep.
Germany, meanwhile, is already falling behind in its commitment to legalize cannabis. So
they reported, as Tilray reported, a $61.6 million net loss for the quarter ending November 30th, Al. They brought their loss for the 6-month period to $127.4 million.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's so, I think that whole $4 billion projection. No.
Yeah. Is no more. It's obviously going to fall far short of that by the looks of things. So
how many more employees are going to lose their jobs? How many more people's lives are going to be destroyed because of this?
Yeah, lots. Yes, exactly. Many will. That's for sure. All right, Rev Kelly. We got about 2 minutes here. Anything new and exciting going on in your world that you want to tell everybody about?
Oh, we're just working on our Can Expo stuff. Everybody come get your tickets in March. And, you know, of course, Al mentioned, and you can see it along the bottom here. I have to be unbiased. I have to be unbiased for the awards. Not that I'm affiliated with PACE or anything. I'm unbiased.
And people got to realize, too, that, you know, you're not picking the winners on this thing.
No. The people are.
Yeah, exactly. People are picking, as well as when it comes to the nominees. Like, I said to some people, you know, there's committees, there's groups. You know, this isn't just one person. This is more people involved in it. You can go to your website, you can see who's all involved in it. And it's good to see that other than Thomas, it's all women that are involved in the Can Expo.
Yeah, it's really, really lovely to see that there is going to be a lot of women on this stage, Al. So it's a nice thing happening. And go vote. You can vote every single day. So there are 7 categories. And we just announced our Lifetime Achievement Award will be going to Abby Roach.
Nice. Very nice. Abby's been involved in this for years. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, you know, she's transitioned into the legal market and she works at the OCS.
Yeah.
You know, at one time probably looked at as a bad person in society. You know, it just
right.
She
never stopped and she kept going and pioneered, and you know, so decades.
And there's lots of when you go to the list of seeing all the nominees for all the different categories.
Yeah,
there's a lot of, like, for people like myself who've been doing this for a lot of years, there's people in there who I've never even heard about, and so you get to learn about these people or these places or these podcasts or so on and so forth. So really, really beautiful humans just working collectively for the plant. So nice to see them being recognized. Yeah. And that happens in March, right?
March 24th, sometime around the middle of the day. March 24th, Friday midday, we'll say.
Yeah. Now and the venue?
Exhibition Place in Toronto.
Yes, the former Direct Energy building, which is now called. Yeah. I've been there before for shows. So it's going to be going back in time when I go in there.
That's so
for sure.
cool. See how it's changed. Well, I hope you like our state.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, other than that, I'm going to run a selfless promo of us being nominated and then the closing. So other than that, from the legacy420.com news desk, that's our news for today. And we hope we found it educational and informative. And thank you to Legacy 420 and the Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. Catch our next Psychedelics and Cannabis educational news broadcast with Glenn and Cindy Thursday at 10 a.m. We'll see everybody next week.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.